Hello, I'm glad you're here. This is not a soft, fluffy story. This is about truth, about things that were said out loud, and about reactions that happen only when someone touches a very painful or forbidden topic. I also want to say right away, before we go deeper, that I do personal tarot readings. Right now, the price for a personal reading is very low, so if you feel that this story resonates with you, if you want clarity exactly for your situation, this might be the right moment. So let's get into the energy. Imagine this scene. Your ex sits in front of a witch, confident at first, maybe even arrogant. He thinks he can ask anything, and then he asks a question about you. And suddenly the atmosphere changes. The cards fly onto the table, emotions rise, and the reaction is sharp, almost aggressive. Why? Because not every question is asked from a clean place, and not every truth is easy to hear. Let's break this down step by step through the questions. What exactly pushed your ex to go to a witch to ask about you in the first place? What I see here is not curiosity for fun, and not someone who just woke up one morning and thought, why not? This move was driven by inner anxiety. Something in his life stopped working the way he expected. Maybe his new plans, new connections, or even his emotional state began to crumble. And when that happens, a person often turns backward, to the place where they once felt important or powerful. You are that point for him. He went to the witch because logic stopped calming him down. He needed confirmation, reassurance, or at least an explanation for why he still feels tied to you on an emotional level. Was his question really about love, or was it driven by fear, jealousy, or obsession? This was not pure love in a romantic sense. The cards show a mix of jealousy and fear of loss. There is a strong element of, what if I lost something valuable and didn't realize it in time? Love here is distorted. It is mixed with ego, with comparison, with the need to know whether you moved on faster or easier than he did. That kind of emotional cocktail often pushes people toward esoteric answers, because normal conversations no longer give relief. Did he expect to hear something pleasant, or was he secretly ready for a harsh truth? On the surface, he hoped for something pleasant. He wanted validation. But deep inside, there was a part of him that already sensed the truth would not be sweet. It's like when someone goes to the doctor fearing a diagnosis but still sits in the waiting room. He was preparing himself emotionally, even though he pretended confidence. That inner contradiction is very clear here. What words did he use when he asked about you? And why did those words trigger such a strong reaction? His wording carried entitlement. Not direct insults, but a tone that suggested you were still somehow an object in his story, not a separate, independent person. The witch reacted because the cards immediately showed a mismatch between how he spoke about you and who you actually are now. That kind of disrespect, even subtle, often provokes a sharp, energetic response. Was his question disrespectful toward you on an energetic level? Energetically, the question crossed a boundary. It wasn't curiosity about your well-being. It was more about his position in your life. The cards showed that you no longer stand where he left you, and that clash between reality and his inner image caused tension. The disrespect lies in assuming access to your energy when that access has already been closed. Did he try to shift responsibility for the breakup onto you through this question? There was an attempt to soften his own guilt, not openly blaming you, but framing the situation in a way where circumstances or your reactions become the main cause. The cards did not support this narrative, and that is part of why the reading became uncomfortable for him. Avoiding responsibility is something tarot exposes very quickly. Was he asking whether you still suffer because of him? This question was present, even if unspoken. It's about ego validation. Knowing that someone still hurts because of you can create a false sense of importance. The cards showed that your pain is no longer centered around him, and that realization hit him harder than he expected. Did he want confirmation that you regret losing him? He hoped for that scenario, not because he wants to return immediately, but because it would soothe his pride. The cards showed something different: reflection instead of regret, growth instead of longing. That contrast is uncomfortable for someone who expected to be irreplaceable. Was there an attempt to check if you are lonely or emotionally broken now? There was curiosity, but it did not find confirmation. The energy around you is not broken. It is quieter, more stable, more selective. Loneliness is not the dominant theme here. Independence is, and that difference changes the entire dynamic between you and him. Did he ask whether you still belong to him energetically? This was one of the core points. Not ownership in words, but in feeling. The cards clearly showed separation on an energetic level. That kind of answer often shocks people who assumed emotional bonds last forever without effort. What hidden intention was behind his question that the witch immediately felt? Behind his spoken words, there was a strong desire to regain inner balance by looking at you instead of at himself. The witch felt that he did not come to understand you, but to calm his own chaos. There was a hidden hope that the cards would explain his discomfort without forcing him to change. This intention creates a heavy energy, because tarot works with responsibility. When a person wants answers but resists self-awareness, the cards respond sharply. Did the witch see manipulation in his energy? She clearly sensed an attempt to twist reality in his favor. Not manipulation toward the witch directly, but toward the situation itself. His energy was searching for a loophole, a way to hear something that would allow him to stay the same while still feeling justified. Tarot reacts strongly to this because manipulation blocks truth. That is why her reaction was immediate and emotional. Was there envy toward your current life or emotional state? Envy was present, but quiet and uncomfortable. It is not the loud, aggressive type. It is the kind that shows up as irritation when someone realizes another person is doing better internally. The cards showed that you have emotional stability that he lacks right now. That difference created tension and a sense of unfairness in him. Did he ask about another person in your life and compare himself? Comparison was part of the reading, even if it was framed indirectly. He wanted to know where he stands in relation to anyone new around you. The cards showed that comparison no longer defines your choices. You are not measuring people against him anymore, and that realization hit his pride quite strongly. Was his question connected to control rather than love? Control plays a bigger role here than affection. Love seeks understanding and respect. Control seeks information to reduce uncertainty. His question was aimed at reducing his anxiety by knowing where you are emotionally, not at reconnecting in a healthy way. Tarot exposed this imbalance very quickly. Did the cards show that you have grown stronger without him? The spread revealed personal growth that happened after separation. Not dramatic, not theatrical, but real. You became more grounded, more aware of your limits, and more selective with emotional investments. This kind of strength often goes unnoticed by those who left too early. Seeing it through the cards was a shock for him. Was he shocked by what the cards revealed about you? Shock came not from one message, but from the overall picture. He expected mixed signals, emotional confusion, maybe lingering attachment. Instead, he saw clarity. That kind of clarity can feel like rejection, even when no one is actively rejecting him. Did the witch react because she saw lies he tells himself? Her reaction was directly connected to self-deception on his side. The cards reflected truths he avoids in daily life. When tarot mirrors inner lies too clearly, the reader often feels a physical response. Her sharpness was not anger, but intolerance for dishonesty toward oneself. Was her reaction a form of protection for you? There is a protective element here, not emotional favoritism, but energetic boundaries. The cards showed that probing further would cross into territory that is no longer open to him. Stopping the flow was a way to respect that boundary. Did the cards expose karma coming back to him? The reading revealed consequences rather than punishment. His current emotional confusion is a result of past choices, not bad luck. Karma here works quietly, through reflection and delayed understanding. Seeing this made him uncomfortable, because it removed the role of victim from his story. What truth about the breakup did the cards throw in his face? The cards revealed that the breakup was not a sudden mistake or an accident caused by circumstances. It was a conscious avoidance of depth. He stepped away at the moment when emotional responsibility was required. The truth shown to him was uncomfortable because it removed the idea that things just didn't work out. Instead, it showed that he chose distance over growth. Seeing this reflected back so clearly felt like having a mirror pushed too close to his face. Did the witch see that he lost more than he admits? What was visible in the spread is a deep, unspoken sense of loss that he rarely allows himself to acknowledge. Outwardly, he may act as if life moved on, But internally there is a quiet realization that something irreplaceable slipped through his hands. The witch saw that this loss is not about missing a relationship, but about missing the version of himself that existed when you were in his life. That realization often hits later, when it's already too late to fix things easily. Was his ego the main reason for her sharp response? Ego played a significant role, but not in an obvious, loud way. It was subtle, hidden behind rational questions and calm posture. The problem is that tarot does not respond well to superiority or emotional detachment used as armor. His ego tried to stay in control of the narrative, and the cards broke through that. The witch reacted sharply because the energy was rigid, not open, and rigidity creates resistance during a reading. Did the cards show that you no longer need him at all? The message here was very clear. Your life does not revolve around his presence or absence anymore. This does not mean bitterness or denial. It means independence. The cards showed emotional self-sufficiency, where connection is a choice, not a necessity. For him, this was difficult to accept because it changes his role from central to optional. Was he trying to interfere with your future through this reading? There was a subtle attempt to look ahead and see if he still has influence. Not active interference, but a desire to know whether his energy still affects your decisions. The cards did not support this idea. They showed that your future path unfolds without his involvement. That realization created frustration because it removed the illusion of control. Did the witch sense emotional dependency in him? Yes, but not the kind he openly admits. It is emotional dependency masked as curiosity. He depends on external confirmation to stabilize his inner world. When that confirmation does not come, anxiety grows. The witch sensed this imbalance immediately, and tarot tends to react strongly to unacknowledged dependency. Was there anger in her reaction because he refused to take responsibility? The reaction was not personal anger, but energetic resistance. When a person avoids accountability, the reading becomes heavy. The witch felt that continuing would only feed his avoidance. Stopping or reacting sharply was a way to interrupt that pattern, not to punish him. Did the cards reveal emotional damage he caused you? The cards acknowledge past pain, but they did not frame you as broken. Instead, they showed wounds that led to awareness. This is often harder to hear than guilt-based accusations. Knowing that someone suffered because of you, yet transformed that suffering into strength, can be deeply unsettling. Was the witch offended on your behalf? Offense is not the right word here. There was more a sense of firmness. The cards showed that your energy does not need defense through emotion, but through boundaries. The witch aligned with that message. Her reaction reflected the boundary rather than personal feelings. What did your ex feel in that moment when the cards were thrown? In that instant, the first feeling was not understanding, but shock. It was as if the ground shifted under his feet. He expected a controlled, predictable session, and instead, he received a raw, emotional response. After the shock came confusion, and only later did awareness start to creep in. That moment cracked his emotional armor. Even if he tried to hide it, something inside him went silent, as if his usual inner excuses stopped working for a second. Did embarrassment hit him before understanding? Embarrassment came almost immediately, not because of public shame, but because he felt exposed. The cards highlighted things he avoids thinking about, and the witch's reaction made it impossible to ignore them. Understanding requires time. Embarrassment is instant. It is the feeling of being seen too clearly without preparation. Was fear awakened inside him after hearing the truth? Fear appeared, but not panic. It was a quiet, sinking fear. The fear of realizing that some doors close permanently, not because of punishment, but because of timing and choices. This type of fear does not shout. It stays with a person long after the moment ends, replaying itself in thoughts and dreams. Did he realize that you are protected energetically? The cards showed strong boundaries around you. Protection here does not mean mystical danger or aggression. It means clarity, self-respect, and a closed energetic loop. He understood that pushing further would not give him access. This realization made him feel small, not in a humiliating way, but in a humbling one. Did the cards show that you are happier now? The message was not about constant joy or perfect life. It was about inner calm. The cards reflected emotional balance, fewer inner conflicts, and a sense of being at peace with your own decisions. For him, this was harder to accept than the idea of you being unhappy. Calm happiness does not leave space for dramatic returns. Was there a message that he was not ready to hear? There was a core message about personal growth that required him to change patterns he still clings to. He was not ready for that level of honesty. The cards did not soften it, and the witch did not translate it into something more comfortable. That is why the reaction was so intense. Did the witch close the reading abruptly to stop him from digging further? The closure was intentional. Continuing would have turned the session into something unproductive. When a person keeps digging for answers without integrating what was already shown, tarot often shuts the door. This protects both sides from wasting energy. Was this moment a wake-up call for him? It functioned as a delayed wake-up call. Not immediate transformation, but the beginning of reflection. These moments rarely change someone overnight. They plant a seed. Whether that seed grows depends on what he does next, not on the reading itself. Did he leave with more questions than answers? He left with fewer illusions, but more inner questions. The answers he received were not the ones he came for. Instead of clarity about you, he received clarity about himself. That kind of outcome stays with a person much longer than simple predictions. And most importantly, did this situation finally show him that you were never the problem? The cards made it clear that the core issue was not your character, not your behavior, and not your value. The problem lay in mismatched readiness and emotional maturity. Whether he fully accepts this truth is another matter. But the message was delivered, clearly and without compromise. What lesson did this situation bring specifically for you, not for him? The main lesson here is about confirmation, rather than change. This situation confirms that you trusted your intuition correctly when you stepped away. You did not imagine the imbalance, you did not exaggerate the emotional distance, and you did not leave too early. The cards around this question show inner validation. Sometimes life gives you proof not to pull you back, but to help you finally stop questioning your past decisions. This moment was never meant to teach you patience or forgiveness toward him. It was meant to teach you self-trust. Does his visit to the witch energetically affect you in any way now? There is no active influence on you from this action. His attempt to look into your energy did not open any channels or disturb your emotional field. The reason is simple. You are not unconsciously connected anymore. Tarot shows closed loops, not loose threads. Even if he thinks about you intensely, that energy returns to him rather than reaching you. So on an energetic level, you remain untouched by this situation. Will he try again to get information about you through other people or readers? There is a possibility of repeated attempts, but they become weaker each time. Not because you are hiding, but because his motivation slowly shifts from curiosity to resignation. The cards show diminishing urgency. He may ask once more, but the answers will be even less satisfying than before. Eventually, the desire to search externally fades when no emotional reward comes from it. Does this reading suggest a future conversation between you and him? A direct conversation is not strongly indicated. The energy shows distance maintained through silence rather than conflict. If contact happens, it feels brief and emotionally flat, without the intensity he might expect. This is not the kind of conversation that changes fate. It is more like a quiet acknowledgement that the past no longer has power. Is he aware now that you see him more clearly than before? On some level, this awareness has begun to form. He senses that you are no longer idealizing him, no longer projecting hopes or excuses onto his behavior. That realization creates discomfort because it removes the fantasy version of himself from your eyes. Being seen clearly requires emotional maturity, and he is only beginning to approach that state. Does the tarot show regret or only wounded pride on his side? What comes through is a combination, but pride still dominates. Regret exists, but it is not fully processed. It appears in quiet moments, not in actions. Pride, on the other hand, reacts immediately. Over time, pride tends to soften, and regret becomes clearer. But at this moment, they coexist, creating inner tension rather than growth. Is there any unfinished karmic tie between you and him? The karmic tie is already resolved. What remains is memory, not karma. Karma requires exchange, lessons still unfolding between two people. Here, The lesson has been completed. The remaining emotions belong to him alone. You are no longer required to participate for balance to be restored. Does this situation indicate that you chose the right timing to walk away? Timing is emphasized strongly in the spread. You left at the moment when staying longer would have delayed your growth. If you had stayed, the connection might have turned heavier, more draining. Leaving when you did protected something important inside you. The cards confirm that this was alignment, not avoidance. What role does silence play now between you and him? Silence functions as clarity. It is not punishment, and it is not emotional distance created out of fear. Silence here allows truth to settle without distortion. For you, it brings peace. For him, it brings reflection. That difference shows how far apart you are energetically at this stage. What is the final message the tarot wants you to hear from this entire story? The final message is simple, but powerful. You were never meant to wait for someone to realize your value. The moment you stopped waiting, everything aligned the way it should. His shock, the witch's reaction, and the cards thrown on the table are all echoes of a truth you already live. You are not being tested anymore. You are being affirmed. Before we close this reading, I want to gently remind you that I do personal tarot readings. If you want to look deeper into your own situation, your emotions, or the future that is opening up for you, this is a good moment. Right now, the price for a personal reading is very low, and sometimes one honest, focused spread can give you clarity that no general reading ever will. Thank you for spending this time with me, for listening, and for allowing this energy to unfold.